next thing I'm going to do is remove any unnecessary users so I can see what users are on my machine with cat etc passwd. There are many ways, if this file is long, there are many ways of taking a look at it. So I could pipe that into more, and then I could use more to go through this file line by line. Another thing I like to do is I like to just open it in nano. So if I say nano etc passwd, you just have to be careful that you don't actually make changes to this file unless you intend to make changes. But I can go through and I can see what users are on here. I'm not seeing any weird ones yet. Oh, but at the end we see two kind of non-standard users here. We see jrice and pinstraw. So jrice we know is a scoring user, but pinstraw is not. So we can go ahead and remove the pinstraw user. So I can say sudo user del -r is going to remove everything about that user, including their home directory. And we're going to just remove pinstraw. So now pinstraw has been removed, and if we take a look at that etc password file again, now pinstraw is no longer there. A lot of the times red team will use automation frameworks, and that's because they have multiple teams to keep track of, and maybe at the beginning of the competition they want to install something across multiple teams. The easiest way to do that is using an automation framework. One popular automation framework is Ansible, but a lot of these times these automation frameworks will leave users on your machine as well. So for example, if you see something like an Ansible user here, unless it's explicitly stated that that's a scoring user, that's something that I would definitely take a look at and get rid of. You should ideally know what all these users are for and know whether they're default in Linux or whether there's some custom user that maybe shouldn't be there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check group memberships, and I'm going to check what each user can do with sudo, right? So to do that, I can look at etc group. So I'm just going to open it in nano again because that's my preferred way of looking at it. If I quickly look through these groups, I'm looking for anything that stands out. So you'll notice that user is part of a lot of groups, but that's okay because user in this case is the administrative user that I'm using. And so I kind of expect them to be part of a lot of these groups. This one's potentially interesting though. jrice, who's a scoring user, is part of the sudo group. And in the instructions, let's say it told me that the only thing jrice needs to do is log in and SSH. They don't need to perform any privileged operations. So maybe they're not supposed to be part of the sudo group. So I can go ahead and remove them from the sudo group. I'm going to go and look through all of these groups because there are many different ways that you can actually abuse group memberships in Linux as an attacker if you're able to get in as that user. jrice being part of the users group, that's pretty normal because he's a standard user as well. And I don't see anybody else in any of these other groups. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to remove jrice from the sudo group. I can do that with g passwd -d, the username, so jrice, and the group, so sudo. There we go. Now jrice has been removed from the sudo group. And I'm just going to print out etc group, and I'm going to look for sudo, and I'm going to just make sure that the only user there is user, which is my administrative user that I'm going to be using. And so that should be fine. The next thing I'm going to look at is what each user can do with sudo. So the main file that's responsible for this is etc sudoers. So I'm going to, again, go ahead and open this in nano. Be extra cautious if you're doing what I'm doing and opening it in nano that you don't actually make changes to this file with nano. You should always use vsudo when you're making changes to this file. As it mentions here, etc sudoers is meant to be read-only. If I come down here, I'm looking for anything that's out of the ordinary. So for example, if in these defaults we see something like, I don't know, LD preload, or there's actually another one. LD preload allows you to load in library files, but there's one that allows you to specify a directory to search for library files. I don't remember what it is, but I'm looking for any ones that stand out and are out of the ordinary. Env reset is pretty normal. Mail bad pass is pretty normal. Use PTY is pretty normal, right? I'm looking for anything that's kind of unusual there. I can also take a look at this path and see if maybe there are any weird directories in this path, but it doesn't seem like there are. And then going down, let's take a look at what sudo permissions different users and groups have on our machine. So root can do anything as any other user. That's pretty standard. Anybody in the sudo group can do anything as any other user. That's also pretty standard. We also see this included directory here at csudoers.d. So we're also going to have to check out the files in that directory. While we're going through this file, I want to caution you on some of the things that Red Team can do if they're being tricky. One thing they can do is they can add a lot of spaces to this file, and then they can put something down here, right? So if you're just going through this file in Nano, or if you're going through it with more, you think you've reached the end of the file, but you in fact haven't. So be on the lookout for things like that. Another thing they could do is they could add a lot of spaces going this way. So add a bunch of spaces and put something here. And that isn't super obvious when I'm going through Nano. You are able to see that arrow there, but if I were just to go down, it looks like there's nothing there. So just be extra cautious when you're looking through these files, that you look through the entire file, you go all the way down, you go all the way to the right, and you take a look at everything. Anyway, I'm going to exit, and I'm obviously not going to save my changes there. I'm also going to go to etc.sudoers.d. We're going to see what's here. So it looks like we have the default README. We also have this interesting vim sucks fight me file. So if I take a look at vim sucks fight me, so this is interesting. It looks like it's giving jrice the option to run v as any other user without a password. And I don't know if there's anything necessarily wrong with that. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to take a look at GTFOBins, which we took a look at in a previous video. I'm just going to search for v and see if there's anything they can do with that. So under v, we see there's sudo. So if I take a look at that, it looks like it can actually be used to break out from, or sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. It looks like it may be used to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privileged access. So that's rather dangerous, and we probably don't want user jrice to have the ability to do that. I'm going to first comment this out, and I'm going to check it to make sure that it doesn't break scoring before I go ahead and fully remove this. As long as it's commented out, this rule shouldn't take effect, right? And of course, the proper way to edit this would be with the vsudo tool. So if I did vsudo, and then I did vim sucks fight me, then I could add that comment. I save that out, and we notice there are no errors. The other thing I'm going to take a look at is that README file. So that is there by default, but of course, Red Team can be tricky, and they can add stuff to the README file. They can put stuff down on the bottom. They can put something maybe on the right here by adding a bunch of spaces, right? So I'm just going to take a quick look through this, but it doesn't look like all these other lines start with a comment. And it doesn't look like there's anything super interesting here. So it looks like we're good to go.